Chapter 11. The secret comes out. Charlotte stood frozen on the porch, the laundry basket slipping slightly in her grip as Adrian's gaze fixed entirely on the 3 children peeking out from behind her skirt. Lucas, the eldest, stood tall and watchful, his dark eyes sharp and curious, exactly like Adrian's. Leo was bouncing slightly on his heels, while little Lila clutched Charlotte's dress, her thumb halfway to her mouth. The silence stretched, heavy and thick, broken only by the distant chirping of birds. Adrian took a slow step forward, his voice rough, almost unrecognizable. "Charlotte, tell me the truth. Are they mine?" Charlotte took a deep breath, setting the basket down gently. She had known this moment might come, but facing it still made her heart race. She knelt slightly, putting a protective hand on each of the older boy's shoulders. "Yes, Adrian," she said clearly, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. "They are yours. Lucas Edward, Leo Alexander, and Lila Grace. Our triplets." Adrian felt as if the ground had dropped from beneath his feet. He stared at them, at the little faces that mirrored his own features so perfectly, at the dark hair, the shape of their eyes. 5 years. 5 years he had lived in ignorance, while 3 lives he helped create had grown and thrived without him. "Why?" he whispered, a mixture of shock, hurt, and confusion lacing his words. "Why didn't you tell me? Why did you leave and never say a word?" "Because you asked for a divorce." Charlotte stood up again, her voice rising slightly, filled with the pain she had carried for years. "Because you told me your heart belonged to Serafina. What was I supposed to do? Stay in that cold house, watching you bring her around, watching you love someone else while carrying your babies? I refused to raise them in a home without love. I refused to be stuck in a marriage held together only by duty. But they are my children." Adrian stepped closer, his expression shifting from shock to anger, not at her, but at the situation, at himself. "You had no right to keep them from me. I had every right," Charlotte retorted, her eyes glistening. "You didn't want me, Adrian. Why would you have wanted our children back then? And what about Serafina? Do you honestly think she would have let us live in peace? You saw what she did with those photos. She paid Damien to pretend to be their father just to keep you away. Imagine what she would have done 5 years ago if she knew I was pregnant." Adrian fell silent. Her words struck a nerve. He knew Serafina well enough now to know she was capable of much worse. But still, the ache of missing 5 years was overwhelming. "Who are you?" A small, clear voice cut through the tension. Lucas had stepped forward, standing protectively in front of his brother and sister, looking Adrian straight in the eye with a maturity beyond his years. "Why are you looking at us like that?" Adrian's heart clenched. He knelt down slowly, lowering himself to their level so he wouldn't seem intimidating. He looked at Charlotte first, silently asking permission, and when she gave a small, reluctant nod, he turned his attention to the children. "I am Adrian," he said softly, his voice gentler than it had ever been. "I am your father." The 3 children exchanged confused glances. They had heard stories about fathers from their friends at school, but Charlotte had never spoken of theirs. "You're our daddy?" Leo asked, tilting his head. "But Mommy said," he trailed off, looking uncertainly at Charlotte. "Mommy didn't know if you were ready to meet him," Charlotte said gently, kneeling beside them. "But yes, this is him." Lila stepped forward hesitantly, her small hand reaching out to touch Adrian's cheek. He froze, then slowly covered her tiny hand with his own. The touch was warm, soft, and sent a wave of emotion crashing over him. "I have a daddy," she whispered, smiling shyly. "Yes," Adrian replied, his voice thick with emotion, tears pricking his eyes. "Yes, you do." Chapter 12. The beginning of clashes. The afternoon that followed was awkward and filled with tension. Adrian insisted on staying, saying he needed time to process everything, and though Charlotte was hesitant, she allowed it, partly for the children, partly because she knew there was no running from the truth anymore. But as the hours passed, differences began to surface immediately. Adrian was used to order, discipline, and the way things were done in a wealthy household. Charlotte was used to the gentle, flexible rhythm of their small home. When Leo knocked over a glass of juice while reaching for a cookie, Adrian immediately stood up. "Leo, be careful. You must hold your cup properly." That was careless. Leo's eyes went wide, and he looked as if he might cry. Charlotte quickly wiped the spill with a cloth and knelt to comfort him. "It's all right, sweetie. It was an accident. We just clean it up and try again." She looked up at Adrian, her expression firm. "He's 5 years old, Adrian. Children spill things. You don't need to scold him like that." Adrian frowned slightly. "Discipline is important, Charlotte. If you don't correct them now, they will never learn." "Discipline is different from harshness," she countered softly but firmly. "They are not employees or business partners. They are children. They need guidance, not criticism." Later, when it was time for dinner, Adrian looked at the simple meal on the table: homemade soup, bread, and vegetables. "Don't they eat meat more often? Or a proper balanced meal? I can arrange for a chef, or send groceries." "No," Charlotte said, cutting him off gently but clearly. "This is how we live. This is what we can afford, and it is healthy and filling. We don't need your money, Adrian. We have managed perfectly well for 5 years. That's not the point." Adrian ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "They are my children too. I want to provide for them. I want to give them the best education, the best home, everything they deserve. And I want them to grow up knowing the value of things, not just taking them for granted." Charlotte stood her ground. "You can't just walk in here after 5 years and change everything overnight. They don't know you, Adrian. You are a stranger to them. To us." Their voices had risen slightly, and the children went quiet, looking back and forth between them nervously. Seeing their frightened faces, both adults immediately fell silent. "I'm sorry," Adrian said after a moment, his tone softening. "You're right. I'm being overwhelming. I don't know how to do this." Charlotte sighed, sitting back down. "Neither do I, but we have to take it slow. If you want to be part of their lives, you have to earn their trust. Just like I will have to learn to trust you again." Adrian nodded slowly, looking at the 3 children who were watching him with wide, curious eyes. He realized then that winning back Charlotte's heart was not even the first step. First, he had to become a father, a real one. Chapter 13: Family Meetings and Doubts. The news spread quickly to both families. Caleb was the first to arrive, having driven behind Adrian, and he listened in shock as everything was explained. "Triplets," Caleb exclaimed, looking at the kids playing in the garden. "Wow, Adrian, you really have your hands full. And they look exactly like you. I can't believe I didn't see it immediately." "Neither could I," Adrian said quietly, watching them through the window. "I feel like such a fool. 5 years gone. 5 birthdays, 5 Christmases, 5 first steps and first words. All moments I will never get back. It's in the past now," Caleb said, clapping him on the shoulder. "Focus on the future." Soon after, the Ashford family and the Lancaster family began arriving one by one. The atmosphere was a mix of shock, joy, and confusion. Grandmother Clara was the first to embrace Charlotte, her eyes filled with tears. "Oh, my dear girl, you had them all alone all this time. You are stronger than I ever imagined." Charlotte hugged her back. "I had help, and they were worth every hard day." Victor Ashford looked at his grandchildren with stern but softened eyes, while Elena Ashford seemed unsure of how to react. Part of her was shocked, part of her relieved the family line continued, though she still struggled with the circumstances. Adrian's brother Ethan and his wife Anna were delighted, introducing their own children, Nathan and Sophie, to their new cousins. From the Lancaster side, Richard and Margaret Lancaster hugged their grandchildren tightly. Samuel and Anna laughed as they watched the children play, and their daughter Emily immediately took on the role of older cousin, playing games with them. But the tension between Adrian and Charlotte remained. Later that evening, when most of the family had left and the children were in bed, they sat in the living room. "So what happens now?" Adrian asked. "I want to be part of their lives. Every day, not just occasional visits." Charlotte looked at him warily. "And what about Serafina? She is still in your life, isn't she? How do I know she won't try something again? How do I know you won't go back to treating me like you used to, cold and distant, once the novelty wears off?" Adrian looked away, guilt washing over him. "Serafina, we have things to discuss. But I swear to you, nothing matters more to me now than my children. And I understand why you don't trust me. I don't expect you to forgive me immediately. Actions speak louder than words, Adrian," Charlotte said softly. "You say you want to be here. Then show it. Be patient. Be kind. Let them get to know you. Let me get to know the man you have become." Adrian nodded. "Fair enough. But I also think we should consider moving closer. Or perhaps having a bigger home where there is enough space for everyone." "No," Charlotte said firmly. "Not yet. This is their home. If you want to be in their lives, you come here. You learn our routine. You fit into our world, not the other way around. Not until we are all ready." Adrian felt a flash of irritation, but he bit it back. She was right. He had abandoned them once. Now it was his turn to adjust. Chapter 14: Serafina's Wrath and New Plots. Back in the city, Serafina was furious when she learned that Adrian had found out the truth. She paced her luxury apartment, her face twisted in rage as her private investigator confirmed that yes, the children were definitely Adrian's, and the secret was now out. She hid them for 5 years. Serafina spat, smashing a glass against the wall. "And now she expects to waltz back into his life. Everything I worked for, gone because of 3 brats." Her side boyfriend, Julian Hayes, a man she had been seeing secretly for months while keeping Adrian interested, sat watching her with amusement. "Calm down, Serafina. Getting angry won't fix it. But it does complicate things. If Adrian takes responsibility, he might leave you entirely. Over my dead body," Serafina snapped. "I spent years waiting for him. I made sure Charlotte left in the first place. I'm not letting a few children ruin everything. What do you plan to do?" Julian asked, leaning forward. "We have to discredit her," Serafina said, a cold smile spreading across her face. "Make it look like she planned this from the start. That she got pregnant on purpose, hid them to blackmail him later, and now she wants his money and status. We have the story about Damien, we can expand on it. Say she was living with him all this time, using Adrian's money secretly, that the children might not even be his. But they look just like him," Julian pointed out. "Details," Serafina waved a hand dismissively. "People believe what they want to believe, especially if there is money involved. We spread rumors. We plant stories. And if that doesn't work, we make sure Charlotte realizes that having Adrian around is more trouble than it's worth." Serafina also knew Damien Voss had been working for her. She called him, threatening to expose his financial troubles publicly unless he continued to help her paint Charlotte in a bad light. Damien, scared and regretting ever getting involved, agreed reluctantly. Meanwhile, Serafina also began putting pressure on Adrian, trying to turn things around to her advantage. She called him the next day, her voice soft and concerned. Adrian, I just heard about the children. I'm shocked. But are you sure, darling? Think about it, she left right after you asked for a divorce. She never told anyone. Why hide it unless she had something to hide? Maybe she wanted to raise them alone so she could control them, or demand money later. And what about that man, Damien? There are still rumors. Stop it, Serafina, Adrian said coldly, cutting her off. The children are mine. There is no doubt. And whatever you are planning, stop it. I know you paid Damien to pretend to be their father. I know you spread lies. If you try to hurt Charlotte or my children ever again, I will make sure you never show your face in this city again. Do you understand? Serafina fell silent, shocked by the coldness in his voice. Adrian, you're choosing her over me. I'm choosing my family, Adrian replied firmly. There is nothing left between us, Serafina. It's over. He hung up, leaving Serafina staring at the phone, her face burning with hatred. Over, she thought. We'll see about that. Chapter 15, Small Steps and Lessons Learned. Over the next few weeks, Adrian began visiting regularly. At first, the children were shy and reserved, watching him from behind Charlotte or hiding behind furniture. But Adrian was determined, even if he often made mistakes. One afternoon, he arrived with expensive toys and designer clothes, excited to give them to the children. But Charlotte stopped him at the door before he could hand them over. Adrian, wait, she said gently. These are too much. Look at this jacket, it costs more than I earn in a month. And these toys are so complicated, they won't even know how to play with them. They are used to simple things. If you give them this much now, they will never appreciate anything, and it will confuse them. Adrian looked down at the bags, feeling foolish. I just wanted them to have nice things. Nice things don't have to be expensive, Charlotte smiled softly. Why don't you come with me to the town store later? We can pick out some coloring books, some balls, something they can actually enjoy. Adrian agreed, and for the first time, he experienced something completely new, a simple trip to the store with his children. He watched as they chose colorful crayons and stuffed animals, laughing as Lila insisted on buying a small potted sunflower to plant. As they walked back, carrying their simple purchases, Adrian felt a warmth he hadn't felt in years. This feels nice. Just walking like this. It does, Charlotte agreed. But there were still many moments of friction. Adrian had a hard time adjusting to the fact that he wasn't in charge here. When he tried to tell Charlotte how to discipline them, or what they should eat, or what school they should attend, they would end up in quiet arguments. You're treating this like a business, Adrian, Charlotte told him one evening after the children had gone to sleep. You can't negotiate how to raise them. We have to agree together. I'm not trying to control everything, Adrian sighed, rubbing his temples. I just want what's best for them. And sometimes I feel like you are shutting me out, like I have no say at all. It's not that, Charlotte said, looking at him earnestly. It's that you have been gone for 5 years. I have made all the decisions, big and small, for half a decade. I have to get used to sharing that responsibility. And you have to get used to being a father, not a CEO. Adrian looked at her, really looked at her. He saw the weariness in her eyes, but also the strength and kindness. He realized how much he had missed, not just the children, but the woman standing in front of him. He remembered how he had treated her before, how cold he had been, and shame washed over him. I'm sorry, Charlotte, he said sincerely. For everything. For the coldness, for not seeing how wonderful you were, for making you go through all of this alone. I don't expect you to forgive me easily. But I promise, I will try. I will listen. I will learn. Charlotte nodded slowly. Thank you, Adrian. That means a lot.